Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. Bridget Burns with the University Innovation Alliance. We help universities share and scale proven ideas that help low-income students. And today I'm bringing a outstanding regular guest, Dr. Tim Rennick from Georgia State, who has been on the front lines understanding how to shift a lot of the innovations that many UIA campuses have now leveraged to address the challenges of students in COVID. And I wanted to do a check-in now that this is the week you just turned in your grades.
Correct.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time. So when did you just turn in your grades this week? So I'm super curious about any kind of breaking insights and what you've learned from this past term. And our hope is that by sharing this, that it will give others inspiration to look at their data in a similar way and be able to share what we're learning about how to serve our students better, especially during COVID.
Yeah, so thanks, Bridget. Good to talk to you today. We've seen surprisingly some uptick in certain indicators all spring semester long. So there is a lot of doom and gloom out there, and clearly there are lots of hardships our students are facing, and faculty and staff as well, under the current circumstances. But even a few weeks ago, we were beginning to see some positive signs. For instance, logins to our career services platform, Handshake, reached record highs. Earlier this week, when we rolled grades for our faculty, meaning we had a deadline for faculty to submit their grades, we got the highest response rate ever. Usually there's some straggler faculty who are a little slow to get their grades in, and we have to then catch up with the faculty and try to get those grades over the coming days. We had a record low number of non-reported grades this Monday. 190,000 grades submitted, only 317 grades were outstanding as of the deadline. So what does that say? Well, when we ran the grades, we began doing some analysis of how the students were doing. And the reality is Georgia State students did very well this spring. We had over 98.5% engagement as of the last week of the semester, meaning 98.5% of our undergraduate students were logging on to their platforms, their online platforms. And when we ran the grades, the GPA for spring semester at Georgia State is not only up, it's the highest GPA we've had for about 4 or 5 years now. The DFW rates are not only down, they're the lowest DFW rates we've had for 4 or 5 years now. Even other things like W's, we thought, well, maybe a lot more students would have withdrawn from their classes. No, the W's are pretty flat. They're about the same number of students who withdrawn. The students just did better academically. This is surprising to us in many ways, but very encouraging.
This is fantastic. So I have so many questions in particular. So folks, if you're trying to look at how you want to slice your data to draw these kinds of insights, thinking about engagement, you're looking across all platforms to see what students are, what their open rates, to see when they're logging into the platforms and when they're engaging with services.
Yeah, during the semester, as soon as we went to entirely online instruction, we began tracking every undergraduate daily for whether they were logging on to the online courses they were enrolled in and other Georgia State websites that they'd need to succeed, tutoring websites, portals, and so forth. And we connected those data with our advisors so that advisors began to immediately reach out to students to see what's going on. You didn't log on to your course. Are you having technology issues? Are you overwhelmed academically? Is there something else going on? Interestingly, in the last half of the spring semester, we had over 200 referrals from our academic advisors to our counseling center, because once they saw the warning sign that a student wasn't logging on and talked to the student, the determination was the problem's not academics or technology. The problem is that the student is facing stress and other issues that they're finding overwhelming. So we began doing that from the moment we went entirely online, and this allowed us to actually improve engagement over the course of the second part of the spring semester.
So this is fantastic, and I'm wondering how other campuses can try and unpack the lessons in real time to think about how we prepare for fall term. Now, are you one of the campuses, remind me, that has higher enrollment for summer term than normal?
We do. Our enrollment is up significantly for summer compared to previous years. And yeah, I think one of the things that people can do at this point across higher education is take a careful look at the spring grades and see what you can discover. What are the markers that are most valuable to you? Obviously, we care a lot about graduation rates. We haven't yet run the degree conferrals. That will come next week. But even within the grades that have already been submitted, how do students do from a GPA perspective? How are students doing with regard to DFW rates? How many students are attempting courses that they're not getting credit for, so they're withdrawing or getting incompletes? And then we've also taken a look at some of our issues like SAP, satisfactory academic progress, and academic warning. So how many students are going on to academic warning? How many students are falling out of compliance with SAP, meaning that they no longer are eligible for financial aid? Encouragingly, we've seen positive results in every one of those categories this spring. And Georgia State is an uncommon institution because we run a very large community college with almost 20,000 associate degree seeking students. And we've seen these positive results for our bachelor students, and we've also seen them equally consistently for our associate degree seeking students this spring. Now, you may want to ask why I think the grades have gone up, but I'll allow you to do so.
Well, I first, for clarification, you were one of the few campuses who could not do pass-fail. And that was a decision that was outside the hands of Georgia State. That was a decision made at the system level, correct?
Yeah, that was a statewide university system decision. They said, absolutely, you cannot move to pass-fail option. So our students were very anxious about that, signing petitions and so forth, not just at Georgia State, but across the state of Georgia. The irony now, in retrospect, is if we had moved, or they had moved, at least in aggregate, to pass-fail, that would have been harmful because they benefited from the grades they received this spring.
Well, then I'll get to the question. It's how now, obviously, I think the headline is that our students are in general incredibly resilient. And we knew Georgia State students were resilient. And this has been an incredible challenge for all of them, that they've really demonstrated that. But I'm curious about what other factors you think have led to this increase.
Yeah, we are incredibly proud of our students under these circumstances. 60% of them Pell eligible, 75% non-white. They've had complicated, difficult lives, and they've gotten much more complicated this spring semester. So for them to perform at this level is amazing. We're proud of our faculty as well. You know, kind of the easy, cheap response is, oh, the faculty must be giving out lots of A's, you know, and that's why the GPA went up. But the reason I don't think that's the full story, or maybe not even the bulk of the story, is that we saw all these other indicators. 98.5% of the students logging on a day-to-day basis, engagement in Handshake, the career services website, record highs and so forth. You know, I think a parallel theory to maybe the faculty adjusting their grading scale is the students adjusted their engagement levels. That our students do live complicated lives. 85% of our students in a typical semester are working. Well, sadly, a lot of our students were the first ones to lose jobs at the beginning of the crisis. They're working in restaurants, they're working in retail, they were laid off. Our governor had a shelter-in-place, stay-at-home order for most of the second half of the spring semester, and students were at home with their devices and more responsive in lots of ways. Our chatbot got more quick responses from students when we queried them. And I think this level of engagement that we were able to track really translated into students doing well in classes. I've long believed that our students we admit to Georgia State have every intellectual ability to complete their work and to get a degree. The biggest holdup historically has been their complicated lives. Family, work, all these other things interfere, and they don't turn in assignments or they miss classes, and that leads to them failing or dropping out. And this spring semester, ironically, amidst the worst set of circumstances we can imagine and most of us have lived through, might have provided a recipe for students to be more engaged in their classes in a more timely way on a day-to-day basis.
Well, this is fantastic. So we just got a question about whether Georgia State teaches resilience or attracts resilience, and then it said that it was answered because you honor and cultivate resilience. I think that is very true. I also think it underscores all of the interventions and practices that you have been talking about for years to set the institution up to have the scaffolding necessary to support students, to intervene, to pay attention, and to adapt to their needs. So, I think in general, this is breaking news, but it's stay tuned for more for folks. And I think the headline here is that you continue to do this work and that our students are showing up and they're doing their absolute best despite all of this. And there are some there are some things to be hopeful about in this moment.
I agree, absolutely. Give the students the opportunity and let's see if they can come through. And at least this spring, our students came through amazingly well.
Well, thank you, Tim, for sharing with us in real time. We were literally in a meeting and I was like, we have to share this right away. So I hope this serves you all. And if you have follow-up questions, then we're happy to do more conversations with Tim to unpack exactly how you can better support your students, especially low-income, first generation, and students of color during this difficult time. So as always, Tim, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope the rest of you have a great day.
Thank you, Bridget.